Years ago, when we first started Angels Airwaves, we had this idea that if we ever wanted to grow this band, we were going to have to approach it in a really ambitious way and do something really different.
It was talked about from day one of starting the band. The desire of making, a feature film to go along with either a record or just the idea of being involved with a feature film.
So we thought if we positioned our band somewhere between the music industry and the film industry and thought of it more as an art project or as a production house, then we would have the ability to create a buzz about the band and create an awareness that was far greater than just being a band.
Adam had a friend who knew Will and said, I know this director, we should check out his reel. He's young, kind of ambitious.
My friend Brian Grant Mills, he got us together and I checked out his reel and I got a feel for him, and then I brought the reel down to the guys.
Adam walked into the studio one day when we were working on the I Empire record and said, hey, my neighbor gave me this thing from this kid and we should check it out. Just visually, it was pretty incredible.
I was working at Panavision. I worked there for about 8 years or something ridiculous, and I'd been making a lot of spec commercial stuff. Came down here for a meeting and discussed doing some vignettes, as they call it, for their upcoming album, which at the time was I Empire. So I think this was all 4 years ago or something like that. Tom had given me a disc and I was listening to it in my car, just trying to sort of envision what this would be about.
Loosely came up with a concept and said, let's go. Here's some money, let's go. Small amount of money.
Will had put together some really cool ideas of what would partner well with our music, and then he started getting into filming them.
I think we figured they would all go together, but I wasn't sure. I think they were going to be individual stories is what we were originally thinking. They were sort of like mini music videos that were just telling a story for each song. So I don't know if we knew we were making a movie or if that's what we were aiming for, at least to start, but it slowly evolved into that. And they had sat me down and I had listened to a song called Love Like Rockets, and it was about, seemed to me something about comparing an astronaut going to space and that experience being similar to falling in love. In my head I was like, God, that would suck to go to space and get stuck up there. So what my original plan was take these little music videos and take these themes, and then every other video make it the story about an astronaut gets stuck in the International Space Station.
So he rented this set that was a big kind of budget movie set. It took up almost half of the original budget that we had just for this one set.
I got involved with the project in August of 2007. It was more or less vignettes for Angels Airwaves. And I'm like, how does this translate into this movie? Where is this gonna be in the film?
There was an edit of the movie, heavy with the vignettes and all that other stuff. I think we all sat around and watched it and we were like, okay, there's a lot of really cool elements.
Our fears as a band was we were gonna just release one long music video.
It was like, all right, clearly we have something here. It's better than what we expected.
But it was nowhere near a motion picture. So we were in this weird gray area.
It wasn't as entertaining as I think something that had a single story.
We gotta expand this and make it a real film.
There's something there to keep exploring.
And that's when we started to reinvent it, and it really from there took off into a movie. So we'd already spent some money, we'd already done some things, we'd gone and we'd rented a space station, which was like $50,000 for 5 days. Mark and myself, we were looking at this footage, and it was clear that we needed to reevaluate how we were going to tell this story, how you can make something epic but with not very much money. We didn't start from scratch, but we sort of went back to the drawing board and we're like, here's what's good about this, rework the script, and go with a more narrative movie.
He says, well, we don't have any money to rent that set again. He's like, but I can build one.
So I had discussed with Tom, I had discussed with Mark Eaton, okay, here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna go to my parents' place and I'm gonna build some little sets. And I wasn't even thinking space station. Originally I was thinking, okay, I'm gonna build some rooms that look spacey. This is what you do when art director tells you it'll cost you 30 grand to do something and you only have 30 grand to finish the entire rest of the movie. These are the caps to the tunnel, to the space tunnel we're building. We're not really sure yet how we're gonna put these on those. We basically built these skate ramps, and then we'd take another skate ramp and flip it up on top of it, and that was gonna be the tunnel part. And then we build multiple ones of those so that you could have these really long you know, sections or whatnot. We'd always get done with a piece, and it was always like, you know, we could shoot this scene there, or we could do that there. If only I build one more. And then I would also try to think of ways that if I was shooting it from this way or that way, or if I put a mirror at the end of this one or did this, how could I make these 3 different tunnels look very different?
And then we saw the footage, and we saw what Will was doing in his driveway of his parents' house. And I was like, and it looks insane.
It was unreal. I couldn't believe that he had done that, and basically with just a bunch of trips to Home Depot.
This is made out of pizza boxes and junk, literally junk from a junkyard.
Something that looks like it's actually in orbit, so legitimate and so incredible, and he's walking around pointing to every little saw cut, every little screw hole that's put in place to make it actually look exactly like the International Space Station.
The way it was built, where it was built, how it was built was just, you know, inspirational. I don't really know what they would have gone through to make that stuff day to day. I don't think I'll ever really understand what kind of weird nights and days that they had, you know, and the uncertainty they had. They were just with blind faith, just building shit.
Batting down the hatches. Tonight is going to be up and down all night, making sure the shit fucking stays put. Power just went out, so that's pretty rad. Yeah! Say, it got a little windy. Blew the top off. Had a leak, which killed one of my computers, and now I'm just trying to figure out where the leak is coming from. But this is the back side of my computer console. Crazy little wiring system right here.
He disappeared for 6 months and came out with one of the most brilliant pieces of like production and set building that I've ever seen.
Like I said, that pops off and you can shoot directly through and see all this stuff down here as he's sort of just facing his computers.
And he thought it out in a really interesting modular way to where he can move these pieces around and make it even look that much larger.
So this piece actually slides that way. This tunnel rolls around, comes here, and see once we get in there, it's a port that we're gonna flip around based on, you know, whatever direction we need to make look realistic. I know there was a number of times where Mark would come up, producer, and he'd be like, wait a second, what's that? You know, and like, oh yeah, I just decided to build that as extra because we could do this scene in there, you know? It's like, it was kind of a never-ending project. I don't think we would have ever done it if we realized like where we were really headed. Like, I don't think we would have ever gone, you know what, we got this sheet, let's build a whole station. There's no way we would have ever done it. Eventually it was like, all right, we have enough stuff. It looks great, let's do it finally. All right, camera speeds, action. Overall, the film took 4 years. There's footage from all over the place of those 4 years, of the Grand Canyon. Some of the Civil War stuff is at the start and at the end of those 4 years. 90% of the space stuff was in an actual shooting schedule of about 26 days. But this all happened because of finding the money at certain times, getting things built, redoing parts of the script, getting it to a point where we were happy with the message and the themes being told. And that's not something that just comes instantly when you're sort of figuring out how to do all this without the support of a regular production and a regular crew. I'm gonna reach through another bag, find this weird thing, and just
the bulk of the film was shot on a ranch in San Ynez. There was moments where it was 35, maybe 40 degrees at night, or there was some times when it was almost 100 degrees inside the space station.
Sometimes there'd be a million bugs flying around the friggin' lights, and it was like, we're supposed to be in space, and yet there's 10 zillion mosquito hawks flying around in the space station.
We had cattle, we had frogs.
That was really tough, because we're not in a soundstage, we're just in a backyard, you know? So you would hear birds all the time. It was low budget blues, man. We have tiny tunnel, treadmill, port. And tunnel 2 and fan room. We gotta pop this off, and we gotta go down and get those right now. So there's a lot of creative problem solving that I think happens when you don't have the money to do it. The exact shot I'm talking about that I know would have been different if we'd had money is a shot where you have smoke going away in front of him, and you see a port going away, and you see the Earth revealing it in his mask. It's just a garbage can lid being rolled away from the front of the plasma TV, which is the same plasma TV that you always see when you're seeing Earth out the window. You know, I had to sort of just figure out what can I do on a budget that's gonna work for this. Are you okay, Bradley? Is that the best scene?
There was definitely some predicaments that I was put in the spacesuit around a lot of public people who had no idea what we were doing. So I'm literally, I don't know, it's like 1 o'clock in the morning and I'm in this tunnel. The first car that passes me is a highway patrol car. I could just see him like double check his mirror, like, did I just see an astronaut? You know, a couple of years of that, you just start questioning what is gonna be in the film and what is just being shot for the sake of shooting, and to see what made it in and how that was all webbed and edited in. Who's to argue? It translates perfect on film.
So, we're in space. Yes, the final frontier.
Gunnar was really interesting. He really brought a lot to the table. I can't imagine being an actor who has to act all by yourself the entire time.
I really was removed from the day-to-day of just being in Los Angeles. I checked my phone less, I checked email less. That helped, you know, spawn those feelings of isolation, of being alone. Everything else was really just left up to Will and my imagination.
It sounds like shit. Oh, hey! I didn't know you were recording.
You know, they talk about film being a collaboration. It really, really is. We'd be doing something and I had lines written that he would start to go off in his own direction and I would just let him go and he would create these really amazing parts. Some of that really insane stuff where he's talking about the space station being in low Earth orbit. I didn't write that stuff. I had scenes, but he just would start to go there and it was just like, let the camera roll. You know, you get a feeling when something feels extremely real numerous times where you're just like, oh wow, that feels authentic.
I saw how much work he was pouring into it. How can you not want to do the same as an actor?
The actual scoring process was a lot of fun when it started to come together.
There was a lot of different opinions on what the music should be.
Again, going back to the Empire, the score was going to be the record.
What I'm really proud of is that we figured out that the film needed to stand on its own. The film needed to be its own thing, and the score needed, no matter what, just to help out the story.
Angels Airwaves came in and just scored the film in a way I never really would have seen.
For Will and Mark to see them excited about what we were doing, that was when we knew we were succeeding.
You know, those guys were like, dude, that's perfect. I really loved the challenge of finding that for both of us.
What we ended up doing was treating it like a traditional movie score, but it was music that really represented Angels and Airwaves.
It was really cool the stuff they were doing where they'd sort of come in with just tracks that were very subtextual and thematic that, you know, if you told me to do this for any other band, I can't imagine doing it. Angels and Airwaves just has that sound that, like, I would want to see in a movie, you know?
The fact that they were not only major producers on the film, but scored this film is a testament to just their vision as a band and as artists.
Angels and Airwaves is completely independent. We don't have a record label where there was no movie studio involved.
And for the amount of money that we did, which is small in terms of movie budgets, but for us as a band, it was still a lot of money.
To not have the backing and the label and the studio or all these things that you would normally have at a production like this, you don't have them with their thumbs on the back of you all the time going, this is how you should do this, this is what you should do. Oh, you need these things. You just had this cool band with these cool ideas, and you had myself and you had Mark and some great editors just going, what do we want to see? There's so many great people who did so many wonderful things. It will be hard for me to watch this film and not just think about those people and like how, you know, it would not have been possible without them.
This literally was, you know, a partnership between a few people and an investment in each other.
None of us did it for a payday or for glory or for anything more than just we really put our heart into this project and wanted it to be special.
To see it actually come to life and know the backstory behind it, it was just amazing.
To actually have a film, a real science fiction film, and for it to be accepted critically, I never saw any of that coming.
I feel like it's the perfect thing. For the band and for the people that worked on it, I felt like it was perfect.
I didn't expect Love to be a 4-year movie, but it was in some ways much more than I ever thought it was going to be.
Everyone pulled together and made it happen just like kids would do. You just go out and figure it out with your buddies, and that's really what this film was.
I like to tell people that my head is more or less always looking up, and what that means is just like trying to think of like the big idea, because I like feeling small sort of in this big universe, and I like that sense of possibilities that are out there. Angels Airwaves likes to explore those ideas, I believe, but in sort of a very upbeat way and in a very hopeful way. And the movie to me is just a big sort of examination of what legacy or what footprints we're going to leave, and having something to carry forward to share with others in this entire universe. And this big, overwhelming sense of hope and design pushing forward.